All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for the time over the past, couple of segments where you watched us talk about noise exposure and noise management and respiratory protection. We're back again on our Perspectives of a Professional series with Tyler Key from Concept Controls. And this time we're going to shift our focus. See what I did there? Shift. To indoor air quality. So thanks again, Tyler, for taking the time to join us.
It's my pleasure, Chelsea. Thank you. And I do like indoor air quality. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about my job.
Awesome. Well, you know what? This is definitely something that's a little bit new for me. My business operates kind of in that testing area, though we don't do a lot with industrial hygiene. So talk to me about air quality. Why is that important?
I think indoor air quality has become more and more important to us, courtesy of what we've learned through the pandemic. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about whether or not we're in a safe environment when it comes to indoor air quality. And the reason being is that, when we were first stepping into the pandemic, there were a lot of unknowns. How is this being transmitted? How do we minimize transmission? And as part of that equation, air quality has become paramount. It's really important to many organizations and many groups. So air quality is important. If you go back to ASHRAE, who is kind of the definitive source on air quality throughout North America, ashrae.org, they state that indoor air quality impacts people's health, comfort, well-being, learning outcomes, and work performance.
Wow.
So it really affects you on the daily. Some agencies suggest that we spend up to 90% of our time indoors. Now, this was published long before the pandemic. So just imagine what that would have been like during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And especially in places like Canada here, where, if it's 40 below, I don't feel like standing in the backyard.
Right.
So indoor air quality is absolutely important to us. I think it's something that's often overlooked from a safety perspective. I know that industrial hygienists spend a lot of time working with indoor air quality equipment and assessing indoor air quality, but the question becomes, what are we doing within our community, in the safety community, to address this challenge?
Absolutely. Well, and something that I'm loving about this topic is that it kind of connects with everyone, right? Like every single person goes inside somewhere, right? So I know we spend a lot of our time talking about hazards and things that affect the workplace, the typically safety sensitive industrial, construction, manufacturing type industries. But, even for me here in an office setting, air quality is important, right? And I love what you said about, worker productivity and learning outcomes, because those are things I, truthfully hadn't even considered. But, we've had some issues here at my office with air quality and things like that. Our building connects to the neighboring building, and they used to use kind of a connecting piece to clean some of their equipment. So those chemical smells would come up through our venting and into our building. And there was a little while there where we were having issues with headaches and, staff not feeling well and stuff. So we've had to foray a little bit into the air quality segment, but it applies really to everyone.
It's true. I mean, most of what we were talking about previously, so we talked about noise, we talked about respiratory protection, you typically have to have some kind of hazard. And I mean, noise, it's all around us, but to the point I made earlier in that segment, if you're in a library, you don't have to worry too much about noise.
Right.
But the majority of work sites will have a component of noise to it. Now, that being said, respiratory, same thing. Maybe it's a little bit more specialized. You're up against a respiratory challenge, but as you said, everyone's got an office, for the most part, or a building that they go into to conduct work. So yeah, indoor air quality is important.
So what types of gases or things are found indoors? Like, what are some concerns with indoor air quality?
So when you're looking at indoor air quality, there's a lot of different measurement criteria, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But as far as gases go, carbon monoxide is the most common, and pretty well every building has the ability to be overrun with carbon monoxide if it's not handled correctly. So we're talking about things like natural gas appliances, whether you're looking at natural gas furnace or you're looking at a natural gas water heater or boiler system. Carbon monoxide is a hazard. Carbon dioxide, of course, can also be a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
If you're dealing with a large volume of people, guess what we emit? Carbon dioxide.
Right.
You'll also find that there's other chemicals, and in particular volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, that can leach off of certain things that are sitting in your office. So you get that new fancy desk, or you've got a new fixture in your building. There's a potential that, based on the materials it was made out of, it may be leaching VOCs or other chemicals into the air.
Does paint still contribute to that as well? I know they've got the low VOC paint now, but are people still using paint and stuff that could be considered challenging for air quality?
I would presume so. I mean, like anything in life, it's hard to turn on a dime. So a lot of us have embraced low VOC paint. No one's using lead-based paint anymore, thankfully. Oh, hopefully. All these things that should be done and gone, right? But don't forget that there may be some older buildings out there where you have exposure to, the lead paints of the world, or asbestos, or what have you. So, there may be hazards indoors that are unbeknownst to you.
Okay, so that kind of leads me into my next question is, how are we measuring air quality?
Air quality is typically measured through specific instrumentation. There's a variety on the market, and again, it's not something where you just walk down to the corner store and go, "Hey, can I get an air quality measurement instrument, please?" This is a little bit more specialized. It tends to be a little bit expensive, so some people will buy it, others will rent it from firms like Concept. What these devices do is they measure things like temperature, relative humidity, air movement, also known as velocity, ventilation, and then from there it'll go into those gases that we talked about. So carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, volatile organic chemicals, as well as particles too. So particles, we were talking about that earlier in the respiratory segment, that can be a hazard as well. I mean, if you're in a high particle environment, you're inhaling that into your lungs too.
So with this specialized equipment, does it require specialized people to operate it and to interpret it? Is it something that people can rent and do themselves?
So the short answer is both. What I recommend is, if you don't necessarily have a hygiene background or a safety background, you probably want to consult with a hygienist or someone who is skilled in this area. But based on a lot of the, let's call them measurement instruments that are out there today, you can come up with a lot of this data yourself. You can even use software to synthesize the data and generate reports.
Okay.
So it's fairly robust. So as far as air quality goes, it's one thing to get a measure, it's another to know what to do with it, right?
Right.
So you might need to call in a professional to understand, or even work with an HVAC company to improve the circulation.
Okay. Well, let's talk about HVAC. How does that impact indoor air quality?
When you're running an HVAC system, it provides critical airflow to dilute the indoor contaminants with clean outdoor air. So the challenge is, if you're not turning your air enough, then you're running into problems, right? The other thing too is, if you are not necessarily using the right filtration device within your HVAC system, that can also create problems as well. So you're flushing it out with outdoor air, which is supposedly cleaner, but you still want to make sure you're filtering it, right? And
Right.
you laugh, but there are so many people and places that are pulling their outdoor air from a source that may not be suitable, right?
Right. Well, and the reason why I laugh, my husband has very severe allergies, and every time we get out in the morning and we get into his truck, and you can see like the pollen covering it because his truck is dark gray. So I laugh when we say that outdoor air is cleaner.
Yep.
Because I know for us, like at our house, his thing is keep the windows closed, because we get, that poplar fluff comes in and pollen and other things, and it creates major issues within our house. So,
the outdoor air is cleaner from a chemical standpoint, certainly, but it does contain other allergens and other challenges. Again, this is where the whole using a proper air cleaning solution is the best solution in the end, right? Using that filter.